Hey, it's Steve, and it is Geo-rant time. Today's topic is going to be groundwater and water issues, I guess. I'm going to pick on California because they are artists at abusing water resources. So there's other places, but they've got it down. They've got it down to a science. So I'm going to pick on them. Okay. Most people get their sources of water from what we call groundwater, okay? Groundwater is water that exists as in pore spaces of things like sandstones and limestones, things like that. It is almost never an underground river or lake. I just want to make that clear because a lot of people think it is. I don't know where they get this from. But anyway, well, as we all know, California has had a lot of water problems and will continue to do so. And they're going to be the model for what not to do when you start running out of water. If they keep going the way they're going, which is more than likely. For one thing, the stage was set a long time ago for this cluster to occur. Several things. Number one, you have more people in California than in Canada, and they only have 3.5% the land area as Canada. So that's going to cause major problems right there, stuffing that many people into such a small area, demanding so much water because most of the climate is semi-arid. Which leads me to the next point, which is why industrial farming in California is the dumbest concept ever, because they also use a lot of groundwater. But California's solution has basically been reservoirs. The problem with reservoirs are many. The first problem with reservoirs is that they destroy the local ecosystem. They just decimate it. You're taking a river or a stream and making a lake out of it that shouldn't even be there. The second problem with them is that reservoirs always end up becoming tourist traps. Okay, they always end up becoming some sort of recreational thing, and so you got all these people on there with their dirty garbage, their dirty boats, just polluting the crap out of the reservoir, and killing whatever life might remain in it. But there's another problem too. If a drought hits, they dry up as well. So reservoirs are not the ideal sources of water. As a matter of fact, there was a plan in the 1960s by the U.S. government to create national reservoirs. They realized how stupid of an idea that was and scrapped it. So reservoirs are only good for short-term replenishment or if needed in an emergency. They're not really good sources of water. Another problem California has is they've taken most of the natural streams and creeks around the large cities and basically turned them into concrete sluiceways. So when it rains and the water comes down these streams, instead of some of it getting absorbed into the ground to replenish the groundwater, it all just runs out to the Pacific Ocean. So that's a ton of fresh water wasted right there. But I want to get into how some people have proposed certain things as a solution to this, as the groundwater problems, and as we get more and more people and consume more and more water, because we consume far more water than we do anything else. It's just going to get worse. And nobody wants to talk about population control, so that's a non-starter. But I've heard other people sit there and say, well, we'll just let technology do it, as if technology is some sort of magical wizard that's always going to be there and has no limits. Let me remind everybody out there that we are limited by the laws of physics to our technology. And a lot of people sit there and say, well, we'll just build more desalination plants. There's problems with this too. Fine, yeah, they aren't a bad idea, but there are many problems. In order to feed on a large scale many people water with desalination plants, you're going to need a lot of desalination plants, and those things are not cheap. The technology hasn't changed much since the 70s. We can only remove salt from salt water so quickly. We are limited by the laws of physics. It doesn't matter what our technology is, unless we have some sort of fundamental flaw in our understanding of how to do this, which we probably don't. We're limited. All right, so you would literally need hundreds to thousands of these things, and your water bills are just going to go through the roof because those things aren't cheap. They're not cheap to build, they're not cheap to maintain, and they're not cheap to use. Another one, and this one angers me more than the desalinization. Actually, desalinization doesn't really anger me, but this one does. And I hear a lot of people, usually in California, suggesting this one, that we just build pipelines from the Great Lakes. You know, just hook some pipelines up to Lake Superior, run them all the way throughout the country. Yeah, that's a great idea. No, that is stupid, 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 stupid. And there are many reasons as to why that is a dumb, dumb idea. Like I said earlier, we consume so much more water than petroleum, and most of the pipelines in this country right now, crossing the country anyway, are petroleum pipelines. Okay? Now, you would literally have to have pipelines, like say where no one lives, say from the middle of Minnesota to the middle of North Dakota, that would literally have to be 2 to 3 feet in diameter. Okay? Now, that's going to cause problems of its own. And contrary to what people who living in California might think, most of the country is not warm and sunny all the time, and water does something like expands when it freezes. So you would have to bury these things really deep. You can't have them above ground. We do have petroleum pipelines that come above ground, like to go over rivers and places, but that's not practical with water, okay? Because water freezes, and then it expands, and it busts your pipes. And that's the second point. If one of those things were to fail, say running through a decent-sized town or a major city, not only are you going to deprive significant part of the population of the country of water for an extended period of time until it's fixed, you're going to essentially have a lake. And if it happens in a city or an urban area in the dead of winter, you're creating a whole nother host of problems. Now, like I said, you have to bury these deeper, but you can't bury them too deep because you need to be able to access them in case something like that happens. You're limited as to what you can construct these things out of, because we don't internally consume petroleum, so we have a great flexibility in what we can make these pipelines out of. We consume water, so things that would work really well and restrict that water in the pipelines really well and reduce freezing is toxic to human consumption. So you have that problem as well. This is why we don't let lawyers and engineers do these things. Another huge problem with the whole water pipelines across the country is the earth is not static. You're going to cross tectonically active areas. You're going to cross areas that are prone to things like earthquakes, landslides, stuff like that. And so eventually you are going to have a break in the pipelines. It's just going to happen just because Earth is not a static body in space. All right? And then you create a whole other host of problems. And I've seen 8-inch water lines. These are just 8-inch. I've seen these things break in summer. And they just keep going and going and just flowing down the road and just creating huge puddles. And this is only on a city scale now. And in order for the city to turn those off, they're depriving the rest of the city of water until that can be dug out and fixed. And when you're talking massive pipelines, like 2-3 feet, that's not going to get done in a day. And how are you going to locate a break? A break can happen in several places. I mean, you can deprive people of water for weeks doing this stupid stuff. The only real solution I have, since like I said, no one wants to address population and distribution of people, is you need to recharge the groundwater aquifers. That's the only real way to deal with this problem. Just drilling deeper wells or going really shallow isn't a solution, because when you drill really shallow wells, you end up running into contamination, because yeah, a 30-foot deep well sounds cool, that produces a lot of water and say a sand aquifer, but if you've got gas stations around or something and those tanks leak, guess where it's going? really deep wells, deepening a well is another common thing people do, but this only lasts, it's like a temporary solution, especially in high volume wells. And you get down to a certain point. You can't do this everywhere because groundwater is prevalent in some areas, not in others. But you get to a certain depth in, say, the Illinois basin, and the water becomes saline. It gets salty. So now you've got to deal with the problem of salt in your water. And plus, we put other things underground, deep underground, other than just petroleum pipelines. We have gasoline reservoirs. We pump petroleum into the ground to store it in certain places, and there's a lot of people who have wells in these areas, and if you deepen your well, you have that sort of problem. So that's just my rant. I didn't really solve anything in that one. I just wanted to point out the issues of the groundwater, and just basically wanted to mention how the whole national pipeline thing crisscrossing the country from the Great Lakes is a very stupid idea. Well, I hope you learned something.